Hey, what's going on, Game Leapers? This is Eags. In today's video, we've got the update of 15 most broken champions for patch 12.19, and we have champions from every single role in this video, so make sure you stick around for the whole thing. And if you want to master any of the champions we talk about, make sure you check out the Game Leap website in the description comment section, because we're uploading champion courses for these champions, champion guides, VOD analyses, where we break down what the best in the world do on these champions, so challenger players that you can easily do in your games as well. So check out those links, get that exclusive access to our library of content by signing up, and let's get into the countdown. Starting off at number 15, this is Draven. You're scratching your head right now because Eclipse got nerfed, but even with Eclipse, Draven is still loving life and has insane win rates across every single elo. Now, one of the big reasons for this is because serrated Dirk is still a very big spike. The lethality in this didn't get nerfed, it did get nerfed in Eclipse, but it's still there for Dirk. Also, once you get Essence Reaver, it's arguably the biggest early game spike in the entire game. Now, once you do get Eclipse, that spike might not be as big as it was before, but thankfully you're still getting the armor penetration from the mythic passive, which is so valuable and allows you to scale like an absolute beast. So Draven is still a top tier AD carry despite the Eclipse nerf. He comes in at number 15, and you might even think about substituting out Eclipse for something like Krakenslayer, maybe even Dustblade. Now, coming in at number 14, kind of surprising here because Udyr in recent patches, well, the ultimate max jungle Udyr has actually been nerfed because Riot are trying to encourage you to max your Q first and not actually abuse the Sunfire Demonic Embrace setup. But the thing is, it's still doing very, very well. And in the majority of elos, and in most elos, Udyr is an S+ tier champion with around a 52% win rate in the jungle. So if you have no self-respect, keep abusing the Phoenix Stands max Udyr with Sunfire Aegis and Demonic Embrace for free LP. Now, beating Udyr to number 13, this is Darius. And we don't really need to elaborate too much on why Darius is broken. Ever since the durability meta hit the Rift in 12.10, Darius has been frothing it. Whether you go Trinity Force or Stride Breaker to snowball, or to actually be able to play the game into kite compositions or range compositions, the Conqueror stacking or even lethal tempo stacking, also the teleport change this season helps you out because you run Flash and Ghost, makes you very, very powerful in the 1v1, which is what you want. The Hemorrhage stacking on top of this, the W buff that came in Season 12, where it's on a flat 5-second cooldown, champion is just very, very difficult to beat in the top lane still. Now, number 12, one of the strongest AD carries is Misfortune. Now, even though you did get nerfed, in recent times, the big change to Misfortune, where you're maxing your Q first, with press the attack, and then building attack speed and crit, so whether you're going something like Gale Force or Krakenslayer, and then into Collector and Infinity Edge, you deal so much damage, especially because of the crit buff to your ultimate not so long ago. Misfortune still shreds. Her laning phase as well is still good, and because of the ultimate in teamfights, and I guess how easy she is to play, because in teamfights, you don't really have to do much else than just press your ultimate, so Misfortune is number 12. Now, number 11, the best AP jungler in the entire game, so if you need a bit of magic damage for your team composition, then think about locking in Fiddlesticks. Ever since your Crowstorm got buffed, so in terms of the base damage and the AP ratio, Fiddlesticks has been performing extremely well in every single elo as well, around a 52-53% win rate. The champion, because his ultimate got buffed, and that really is just his identity, your Crowstorm, with this extra power, the sticks is very hard to stop. Now, starting off the top 10, we have the best AD carry in the game at the moment. Now, even though she is coming in at number 10 on the countdown and not higher, Kai'Sa is a massive threat at the moment. And that's really because of the buff in 12.19 and also the recent buffs to Kai'Sa, because she wasn't really meta until recently. So the buff in this patch to your passive, so there's more AP in your passive, means that if you're getting something like Nasus Tooth in your build, and of course you can still go something like Krakenslayer or Gale Force into Collector, something like this, but with more AP in your kit now and your passive being such a big part of your kit, because you can proc it so easily and it does deal so much damage, particularly later in a game, this has been massive for Kai'Sa, and this is why she's number 10 and the number 1 AD carry. Now, number 9 on the countdown, we're heading to the mid lane here and talking about the best attack damage mid laner, this being Zed. Now, why is Zed so broken? Well, the energy buff to his E, so it's costing 10 less energy, so 40 in total, really, really good, right? Especially if you're fighting melee champions, because you can use your Shadow Slash more often, particularly in the mid to late game as well, because you will have so much ability haste by that point, you can spam your Shadow Slash more. You don't have to worry about your energy as much, so this has been big, but also, you're starting the game with 3 health pots. Very hard for any mid laner just to out-sustain a Zed in the mid lane because of all the sustain nerfs from 12.14. He's starting with 3 health pots. Not many other, if any, mid laners are going to have that much. And speaking of 12.14, also the buff to Scorch. This means that Zed, if you're running Scorch and Transcendent along with Electrocute as your keystone, your combos, they deal more damage. They're harder to actually regenerate HP from because of those sustain nerfs, so Zed comes in at number 9. Now, number 8, a bit like Kai'Sa, a champion who got buffed in 12.19 and kind of massively so, this is Nasus. So the buffs to your ultimate, so when you Q, your range has been doubled. Also, your ultimate, the actual tick damage from it, so the AoE, this is happening twice as much. And also the Wither buff, which means you'll be slowing the enemy's attack speed for even more, based on the movement speed slow you have. This has been huge for Susan. And in most elos, Nasus is just absolutely smashing it. He might not be as good in higher elos, but yes, in those lower elos, Susan is a massive threat at the moment and one of the strongest champions. Now, number 7 on the countdown, heading back down to the bot lane here, this is is Janna. So if you just want to play one of the most annoying supports to play in the game, picking Janna is very wise. Because of the changes in Season 12 where your Q travels at the speed of light, pair this with Glacial. Very hard to avoid, the enemy champions get slowed, and because you're Janna, they can never really jump into you anyway, and I guess her 52.5%, 53% win rate, which has really been the case, even though she got nerfed like 4 times a few patches ago, it just goes to show how broken this champion still is. Now beating Janna to number 6 on the countdown, heading back to the top lane here, the Beyblade, Garen. Now in 12.19, Garen got buffed, so if you have more critical strike chance, your E is going to deal more damage. Now I'm not saying you guys should go out and build like a PD and an IE after your Mortal Reminder, but it is actually an option. Like if you're really snowballing, like you're just dumbstring the enemy top laner, it is a legit option. Not only will you deal so much damage, but it's also fun and tilting to play against. As soon as a Garen silences you, he will just one-shot you with his judgment. And I've also heard somewhere that Mortal Reminder might be getting buffed in the future, and for Garen, because you get this after your Berserker Screes and Stridebreaker, this build will be even better. So Garen in 12.19 is even better, that's why he's number 6. Now starting off the top 5, heading back to the mid lane here, the second best mid laner at the moment is Fizz, and that's because of the EAP ratio buff that Riot gave you, don't know why but they did, in 12.19. So it's gone from 75% to 90%. What does this mean? Well, you're maxing your E first, so for your most important basic ability, for this to get buffed, this is kind of huge, and it's really huge in the mid to late game once you start getting a lot of ability power, because that's getting pumped into your E. So you'll be dealing even more damage, and once you think about Sorcerer Shoes and Luna's Tempest and the magic penetration on top of this, you one-shot everyone. You definitely don't even need your ultimate to one-shot squishies anymore, and Fizz's win rate, which has increased by a couple of percent in the last few days, it tells us how impactful these buffs have been and how good Fizz is. Now number 4 on the countdown, this is AAtrox. Now a bit like Draven, right? Because you were going Eclipse before this patch, you might be thinking, well, the Eclipse nerf is going to kill AAtrox. Well, AAtrox is actually just an innately broken champion. The reason why is because of the sweet spot damage buff not so long ago that Riot gave you. So if you can land the outer part of your Qs and hit the enemy champions where it hurts the most, you deal so much damage. But there's another reason why AAtrox is still good, and it's just the fact that you can kind of bypass the Eclipse nerf by building another mythic. Now what is it? Gore Drinker, of course. And in solo queue, where most champions are not going to play a range, even if they are a ranged champion, you can get so much out of this item. And of course, I'm really talking about the active because you will heal so much, and the item because the extra ability ace, if we remember. So it's giving you 7 now for each major item you have. This lets you scale, and it reduces your cooldowns so you can spam them, especially in the mid to late game. So AAtrox continues to be a top tier champion. He's number 4. Now starting off the top 3, I do not want to talk about this champion that much. This is Bel'Veth. Easily the best jungler in the game, easily one of the strongest champions, just innately speaking, because the attack range buff, even though Riot may have nerfed her scaling or tried to, doesn't really change the fact that Bel'Veth, like I said, innately is just busted. She's still one of the most picked and banned champions as well, so if she is open, guys, I'd highly recommend just locking her in, and pretty much has no weaknesses. Now coming in at number 2, kind of exciting this one because we haven't talked about Syndra in one of these videos for ages, and for Syndra to be back, especially in a solo queue environment, it really speaks volumes to how powerful she is. Now why is she so powerful? Well, that's because of all the changes. So during the laning phase, you're a little weaker, your Q is no longer cooldown, and your passive is really everything now. So scaling into a game, right, the more splinter stacks you get, the stronger you become. So once you start acquiring these splinter stacks and your Q, you have 2 of them. Your W deals more damage. Your E boasts a 90-degree angle. How are you going to miss this? And your ultimate one-shotting champions at 15% of their max HP. How is that even balanced? Now, I understand that Syndra has a sub 50% win rate in most elos, but just go to Master and above or even Challenger on one of those stat websites. She is an S+ tier champion and wins a lot of games. Just be sure, guys, you are playing her towards her new identity, which is scaling. No longer are you really a lane bully. You can still in some matchups, for sure, but just keep that in mind when you lock her in 12.19. But the number 1 champion, guys, for 12.19 is actually a support, and I reckon you guys can guess who this is because of the changes to this champion at 12.19. Well, he was strong beforehand, now he's even better. This is Blitzcrank, and because of the changes to Blitzcrank in 12.19, even if we talk about like the attack speed buffs to him, this means that as a support, you're getting in more auto attacks, which do matter, especially in the early game, and because you are Blitz, earlier in the season, your Q damage got buffed, right? Your ultimate damage got buffed. Your early game, if you land 1 rocket grab, champions will die 100%. So Blitzcrank is the number 1 support and champion on the entire Rift in 12.19. According to the stats in Platinum and above, for example, he has over a 54% win rate. How can I not put him number 1? So those were the 15 most broken champions, guys, updated for 12.19. Let me know in the comment section your thoughts, any questions, and of course, if you do want these countdowns to continue, please leave a like down below. Until our next Season 12 upload, this has been Peace.